All right. This is the hyoid bone. We know where that is, way up here. This is the hyoid bone. These two big plates here are the thyroid cartilages. So your thyroid glands sit like saddlebags right over here, one lobe on each side. Okay? This right down here is obviously the trachea. Okay? There is one complete ring of cartilage right at the base of those thyroid cartilages. It's called the cricoid cartilage. It's the only ring that goes all the way around. Because you see in the back here, these other ones are just C rings. They don't close. But there's one right at the end here.
But
right
you can't see that one, right?
You can't see it on this model. No, you can see it over here. I'll show you. Okay.
Tanya.
This is the cricoid. Okay. This right here is the epiglottis. Okay. These right here are called the arytenoid cartilages. And if we move those, you see those are attached to the vocal folds.
Oh, that's so cool.
Right? Yep. Okay. So when you swallow, the epiglottis closes off your trachea, and it actually forces food back down here, because in this space right down here, this is where the esophagus lies. So it swallows, and it forces the food down the esophagus, keeps it out of the trachea.
So every time you swallow, your epiglottis closes?
Yes. Okay? Hopefully. Cool. If it doesn't, then you start choking.
So when something goes down the wrong pipe, quote unquote, it's because something happened and it didn't close.
Something got stuck under the epiglottis.
Water or whatever, and you choke because water.
The only way you get it out is you cough it out.
Okay.
Aspirate into your lungs.
That would be bad.
Yeah, very bad.
Very bad. All right, so if we look at that on the sheep pluck, here's our sheep pluck. Okay.
Is it called the pluck no matter what animal it is? Or is it just on a sheep? No, seriously, because I never heard that.
I don't know, but you see this cartilage right here? Okay, this top ring would go all the way around. That would be the cricoid. It's really stiff. It's really hard. Okay. Well, unless because yours isn't open, we'd have to cut this.
Well, we didn't want to mess with anything.
No, I don't want to cut it yet. Okay. So here's the trachea, and if you feel here, this is all open down here. See how they don't go all the way around? Right? And this is where this esophagus will be lying, just like that. Okay? And if we look, just to orient us, so the lungs are up against the back, right? This is the heart. This is called the pericardial sac, the sac around the heart. This is what's left of the diaphragm, which is a really thick muscle, a really tough muscle, and I'll show you in the cat where that is. And then these are the lungs. And if we turn this around, pull this open a little bit, so the trachea comes down and it splits, right? So this is the right and left primary bronchus. Goes to each side. And then if we pull this tissue back a little bit, you see how that primary one splits again? Mm-hmm. Okay, those are the secondary bronchi.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then if I were to prosect this out again, each one of those secondary ones would split again, tertiary, and it would just keep, they would just keep splitting into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller passageways until they dead end in the alveoli. Okay? What they call the root of the lung is just this whole area here where that primary bronchus goes in and it takes the artery and the nerve and the vein with it. That's called the root, right there where it enters the lung tissue. Okay? And you can't see any of the membranes except for the pericardial membrane. I mean, all the visceral membranes are gone, obviously. If we look at this, this is the top part. This is the top part of this. Okay? And they've split it all open. So just to orient us, this is the hyoid bone. Okay? Like our hyoid bone here, hyoid bone. Okay? If we look at the back here, there's the epiglottis. Right? And then they've opened this up for us. And you see these bumps on the inside? Hold it up for me. There we go. See the bumps right here and right here?
Yep.
Those are these cartilages right here and right here. Those are the arytenoid cartilages. Okay, and then the vocal fold, which are part here, would be attached to those cartilages and they would move.
That's so the sheep can talk?
Yeah. That's fine. So again, if we put the thing in here, we come through the trachea. Okay, and they've cut it, but if I put through here, like that, I'd be going through. I'd be going through the esophagus.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that would fold down and block the trachea, and then the food would go down the esophagus behind it. Okay. All right. Move Mr. Pluck out of the way.
Get the pluck out of the way.
Everybody else left.
I know. Yeah. We couldn't see we're getting very frustrated over here.
Okay. Don't get frustrated. It's all, it's all good. All right. Oh, you have a great parotid duct over here. We'll get to that later. All right. Trachea, obviously, right? You can feel the rings. Okay. Here's the thyroid cartilages. You have a ventral median prominence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you do. An Adam's apple, right? Yep. A bump on the front. A bump on the front. Okay. Now, if you had thyroid glands, and it's
We
hard.
were having a hard time.
find 'em.
No.
Yeah, I don't
I
know
don't know
what's.
if they were just chewed up or if they just weren't there.
Yeah, who knows? They get chewed up like when you're doing the muscles there.
Yeah.
People
Are
make
the,
them
are the
on.
thyroid glands attached to the thyroid cartilage?
Yeah, they sit like saddlebags.
Okay.
There's a lobe here, it's connected across here, and then there's a lobe on this side. Okay?
Looks like he had a tracheotomy. He's got a hole.
He does have a hole right there, doesn't he? So if you feel up here, you can feel the little hyoid bone right up here. Reach in there and grab that. Hyoid bone's right up there. Okay, and then behind the trachea, again, is the much more flexible. I can dig it out here.
I wonder why we couldn't find that stuff.
Membranes and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to rip anything that's not supposed to be ripped. I was like, eesh.
There we go. This big flexible tube right there, that's the esophagus.
Oh, that's a tube?
It's behind the trachea.
Wow.
It lies right behind the trachea where there's no cartilage.
Okay.
It lies right in that flat spot.
Okay.
Okay? And it's got to be flexible because when you swallow, you have the bolus of food coming down. It's got to expand to accept that. Okay? So that runs right behind the trachea all the way down. If we open them up, and they haven't opened these cats up very
No.
well.
Yeah, element if you want. 'Cause
Okay.
you guys
So-
are videotaping.
This right here, well, these are obviously lungs, right?
Yep.
This is the heart. And we're supposed to look
Do you
for
see
a
the fourth? We just want to.
thymus. Some of this stuff here that's kind of like this stuff,
Yeah.
that's actually part of the thymus gland,
Oh,
which lies in this area right here, and it'll be long gone before
we
you have any
thought maybe
practical.
it was. Like we were looking if it was around here like that. I was like, I don't know. We couldn't tell.
Right, the thymus lies right in there, but unless it's a really young cat, you won't see it anyway because it gets reabsorbed, just like
Yeah.
ours. It gets reabsorbed
It's largest
as
at
we
birth
age.
or something. I think I read that.
Yep.
In the book.
Yeah.
Yep, and then it just keeps
Yeah.
getting smaller. This right down here, see this thin, very tough layer right here of muscle? That's the diaphragm. Okay? And the diaphragm separates your chest from your abdomen, and you have to keep this compartment sealed off because you have to be able to change pressure there. If there's holes in it, you can't change pressure, so you won't be able to breathe. Okay? So the diaphragm has to move up and down because you're changing volume of your chest, which changes pressure, which forces air in and out. So this diaphragm, this muscle, has to have some sort of innervation, right? The nerves have to tell it when to move. And there are two long nerves, one on this side. See that?
Mm-hmm.
And it runs right along the heart,
Oh, you're up on the
See it?
side of it. Yeah.
all the way up here.
That is
Right
the
there.
nerve that we were
So do
looking
those
at.
come
Yep.
from the spinal cord?
That's
like
all
ultimately?
Ultimately, yeah. These are the phrenic nerves. There's one on each side, innervating each side of the diaphragm. Okay, a friend of mine had surgery. She actually had a mediastinum tumor here removed, and they nicked one of her phrenic nerves, so
Ooh.
half of her diaphragm is paralyzed now.
So
Oh
how
my
does she
gosh.
breathe?
She can't. She gets winded very easily.
Yeah.
She's
Wow.
winded very, very easily.
Where's the fourth lung on the right side? We just want to make sure we could.
Well, let's see. We have one,
Two, three.
Three.
Is there a
That-
little?
there's one.
and
It's way in there.
It's like
There's-
way in the.
Yeah,
it's way
I can
down,
see that.
way down at the
Okay.
bottom in the back.
Yeah.
You don't need to know all the different lobes. You just need to be able to recognize.
There's
that this
four
is
on
one.
each
Lung.
side?
Okay. No, just
No,
the right side.
Four
Four
on the right,
three on the
three on the
left.
left.
And
Yep.
if you feel this tissue, it's like really spongy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I think I can see it in there, but it's just tucked way in
I can't
there.
even see it from this side. But
Yeah.
It's way down
Yeah,
under.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a
I
real
can see
low,
it.
Like when they're listening to your lungs, they listen way low.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what they're listening
Okay.
for, to see
Yeah,
if
we
that's
just couldn't
filling.
see it, so we're like,
But
we have a
we only
deformed
have
cat.
two on each side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right behind you on the table, there's a real set of lungs.
Oh, that's creepy.
You see this area? And it's going to be hard for you guys to see this, I know, but like right here, it's kind of a lighter area.
Mm-hmm.
See that right there on the diaphragm? Anyway, that's called the central tendon of the diaphragm. It actually should be like a crescent here. And that's just where the muscle fibers end. So there's no muscle there, so it looks white. I don't know why it's important for you to know that, but there you go.
Okay.
Okay? So now our esophagus, remember, our esophagus is coming all the way down here behind the heart, behind the lungs. We have to get through the diaphragm in order to get to Oh, you're really juicy. In order to get to the stomach, which is right here, right?
Yep.
So that esophagus, look way down here at the bottom. Again, it would be better if they had cut these ribs so it was open a little bit more. Anyway, the esophagus comes
I
in
can
right
see
down
it.
here. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, and it goes through the diaphragm at a particular spot called the hiatus. And sometimes, especially in preemies, that hiatus can rip, and then you have abdominal contents coming up into the chest,
Yeah.
and they have to go in and that's called a hiatal hernia. They have to go in and sew that up, obviously. So anyway, so that esophagus comes through right here. Here's the esophagus on the other side of the diaphragm, right? Right there. And that
Goes into.
attaches to the stomach, and the stomach is kind of like a J-shaped organ, right? It's coming here,
Yep.
right? This is the stomach. So this is the fundus of the stomach, the top part. Yeah, you can let that go now. Okay. And right where that esophagus meets the top of the stomach is a sphincter. That's called the esophageal sphincter. And the job of the you laugh. The job of the esophageal, she had reflux disease.
I did too.
Yeah. The job of the esophageal sphincter is to keep the acid in the stomach.
Yep.
Because your stomach has two types of glands in it. One type produces hydrochloric acid and the other type produces mucus. So there's a thick mucus layer lining the inside of your stomach which protects it from the acid. But your esophagus doesn't have that. So if that sphincter doesn't close properly, or if you produce abnormally high amounts of acid, you can get some acid coming back up and burning the end of the esophagus.
So that's where
Yep.
it erodes your esophagus over time.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Did you take the purple pill?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sound like a commercial. Okay, so we're assuming that works properly. The food comes into the stomach, shuts it off. In the stomach, it gets mixed with the acid, which starts chemical digestion, particularly of proteins in the stomach. And then from there, we have to send that acid chyme out to the small intestines. Now, the small intestines also does not have a thick mucus layer. So we need to do two things. One, we have to regulate flow out of the stomach. We can only let that stuff come out of the stomach in one little spurt at a time, because as soon as it comes out of the stomach into the first part of the small intestines called the duodenum, we have to neutralize the acid right away. And neutralizing the acid is the job primarily of the pancreas. So if we pull all this goo up out of the way, the pancreas runs from the spleen, which is the thing that looks like beef teriyaki right here, right? And this is pancreas tissue right here. It runs from the spleen. All of this is pancreas. All of this is pancreas. All of this is pancreas.
Wow, I didn't know
From
it was that big.
From the spleen under the stomach, right around to the duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestines. This is all pancreas. Okay,
People get ulcers there.
and the
Duodenum.
They-
Duodenal ulcer.
They can if that pancreatic, if that pyloric, this is the pyloric region of the stomach, the end down here, before it reaches the small intestine, this little piece down
Yes,
here,
yes,
that's
sir.
the pyloric, and there's a pyloric sphincter which regulates flow. So that can malfunction too, and that can lead to a whole bunch of trouble down the line there. So the pancreas, the digestive function of the pancreas is to produce a whole batch of different digestive enzymes, and it delivers them right to the beginning of the duodenum, right where that stuff is coming in from the stomach. And it delivers them in a very alkaline solution, a very basic solution. So you get all your digestive enzymes in there and you neutralize the stuff right away. Okay? Also coming in right at the beginning of that duodenum is your bile. My nose is so itchy.
The
So
cat.
this, so this right here, all of this stuff right here, this is all liver. Okay, all these lobes of the liver. And if we look in here, we can see that right there? There's a gallbladder.
Oh, ours didn't have one.
No, yours, somebody took yours.
I don't have one either.
You don't have
I
one
don't
either?
have one either.
I had it out
But
3
our
weeks
cat
before I
didn't.
turned 21.
Cholecystectomy.
Our cat didn't have one.
Oh no, I still drank when I was 21. It was 3 weeks before. You're good. Don't worry.
Okay, so this is the
I'm
gallbladder.
23.
You have a gallbladder.
Yeah, I have a broken pancreas. So.
Yeah, the
Diabetes.
the liver produces bile, which is a collection of different salts. And the function of the bile is to act as an emulsifier, which breaks down big globs of fat into little droplets so you can more easily digest them. So it's made in the liver, it's stored in the gallbladder, it comes from the gallbladder through the bile duct,
That sounds
And-
delicious.
and that the bile duct is also joined by ducts coming down here right from the liver, all these other ducts coming in here, and they join into one big tube, which is right there, and that's called the common bile duct.
Oh, okay.
How so in cats, when in humans and stuff, how, I mean, they say that the gallbladder is about the size of a robin's egg in a human. Are the ducts and things like the same? Like, are they close to? Or are these much smaller than what we have? Like duct wise.
Relatively, the sizes are the same.
So, oh wow. Oh god.
Okay.
No wonder why it had to come out.
Yeah. Well, what happens is because those are salts, some of those salts can crystallize out, and then you get gallstones,
yeah.
which actually look like little gray pebbles. And what they do is they block this duct, which makes it
So painful.
excruciatingly painful.
I know. O2L.
Well, and
Yep.
that's why they say like to have surgery in a duct, they'd have to go in to cut that to make it bigger so that a stone could pass through when you don't have your gallbladder. Trust me, I know everything about that thing.
Yeah, my sister-in-law had hers on too.
Yeah, my sister had
But
hers
I was
out,
just
too.
curious because I'm like, I never got to actually see it.
Yep, and also joining in, which we really can't find out where it is, but also that's where the pancreatic duct comes into, and they all go in one big tube, and it goes in right. See where it's going in? Right at the beginning of the small intestines.
Okay.
Okay? So this first part of the small intestines right here, this first about 4 inches or so, this first U, is the duodenum. And this is where chemical digestion is completed. Okay? Everything is broken down as much as we can break it down right in this area. Okay? The rest of the small intestines is for absorbing all those nutrients. So this is the duodenum. All this curlicue, get this away. All this curlicue stuff in here, this is all jejunum. And this is actually held in a very specific conformation in the abdomen, and it's held by this beautiful mesentery here with all these.
Is it
blood
held in a
vessels.
certain way so that the food can, like, so gravity works, so food can actually work through there? Although you have
Peristalsis
peristalsis.
moves the food through the intestines. Yep, but it's all this. You have to have all this blood.
So it's an
flow there.
organized mess.
It's an yes, it's a very organized mess, and that's why a lot of times if you have abdominal surgery, if they don't put it back quite right, you can get adhesions and you can get obstructions. So yeah, it has to go in there in a certain way. So all the middle part is jejunum, and then about the last 4 inches of the last little U-shaped curve here, this is called the ilium. Okay, and the ilium is the part that joins with the large intestines, which is this right here, obviously much larger diameter. Okay. Where that small intestines, where that ilium joins with the large intestines, there's a little
bump.
Well, yeah, there's this little hard thing here, which is another valve. This is the Ileocecal Valve that regulates flow from the small intestines into the large intestines. And this little nub right here is the cecum. If this were a human, this would be our appendix. Okay? So this is the ileum, this is the ileocecal valve, and if this were in the right orientation, if we could put this in the cat properly like this, you would have an ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, okay? And again, this is where our appendix would be, way in that lower right quadrant, hanging down here.
So if your appendix were to like burst, like in some people have, it like swells up your.
What it does, well,
intestine? Like-
what that does is it floods this whole cavity with bacteria.
I know.
That's major sepsis.
a
really
woman I
dangerous.
worked with had back pain and it did that, but her intestine swelled like around it, and it just basically kept all that poison right there. And I was like, oh, you
lucky then.
That can't be good.
No, but that's why I
But
was like,
instead of going
seeing
everywhere,
it
yeah.
This way, I'm surprised. Just it's weird if it's attached like that. How it don't fill into.
I don't know.
Intestine. Why wouldn't it?
Proportionally, are we the same? Like the liver is huge. Is
Yes.
our liver
Huge.
is huge as well?
Yep. I mean, your liver,
That's why they
When
can
the
take part
food-
of it off, and you still.
when the nutrients,
live
when the
without
blood
it.
flow comes out of the intestines, the first organ it goes to is the liver. The liver is a major filter. Filters out nutrients and stores stuff, and so it's huge. This descending part of the large intestines is attached to the back body wall by this membrane here that's called the mesocolon, and that just keeps it in the right orientation, keeps it straight like this, because you don't want kinks, because that's going to lead to obstruction and blockage and all kinds of nasty things. So the large intestines, the primary function of the large intestine is to resorb all the water, and then the waste goes down into the rectum, which we can't see yet either, for storage and compaction, and then elimination out through the anus. Okay?
Now we have a little much more intestine than they do, right? Like a
yeah.
much.
Several feet. This
It's gross.
it is gross. Actually, yours is pretty much intact, though. That's pretty amazing. This fatty apron here is called the omentum, and it's called the greater omentum because if you look at where it's attached to the greater curvature of the stomach, or the big curve of the stomach. There's also lesser omentum, which is this fatty goo right here, this junk right there. That's lesser omentum because it's attached to the lesser curvature of the stomach.
Where's
does
the
it do?
peritoneum? Because I thought that held everything.
The
in.
peritoneum, well, yeah, it's the membrane that covers everything.
So it goes even over the.
We've cut it
It
apart,
goes
though.
over that even.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So
and
that
it's
would
all-
be there, and then
like,
do
see
we
that
have?
shiny
Do we have?
stuff, right?
Here's some shiny stuff here.
Oh, that's
Shiny. I don't know if it's just shiny or it's just greasy.
that's the peritoneum.
That's the
Do
peritoneum
we have
membrane.
this as well?
Yeah, what
The
is
omentum?
what is
The
this?
We do, yeah, we do have some of this. I don't know if it's this extensive. I'd have to check that out actually in humans. It's just nasty.
What is it?
Again, it's a cushion
Just
and the fat provides some
holds all the-
insulation.
Okay.
You know, it's the thing that does the
Keep throwing
thing.
that.
The thing
Yeah.
that does the thing. I hope
Yeah.
that's on
Oh, I guess those
the
are
tactic.
membranes,
Yeah,
maybe.
put the
Huh?
thing that does the thing. I want points for that.
Yeah, those might be the parietal membranes, but the visceral membranes. I mean, there's no membranes or anything in here.
Yeah, can't see none of that.
No, and then the other
And then-
one was a
Yeah, you can see the
banana.
parietal pleura up there. Remember, maybe.
It's a little better.
And then we have the salivary glands. There's 3 salivary glands. This is the masseter muscle, right?
Yep.
And you actually have a nice parotid duct. See this duct right here?
We didn't have that either.
You didn't have that either. That's the parotid duct. And that is
Okay.
leading from the parotid gland, which you actually can't see very well in your cat, but you got a good duct. They haven't been really prosected out in this guy. But right below the ear is a spongy area. That's called the parotid gland. Below that is another spongy area. That's the submandibular, right under the mandible. And the third one is deep to that. Is this tiny little sublingual gland, which you're probably not going to be able to see anyway. But once you get these prosected out a little better, we can see the glands more. But you do have a nice parotid duct here. That's carrying the saliva into the back of the mouth.
We were reading that in the book, and I'm going, it looks like it's up near its ear, but I'm like, I have no
Can't
idea
see
where it
any
is.
of
Yeah, the parotid gland is actually right below the ear, way back here.
Okay.
And the submandibular is right at the angle of the jaw here, right under the mandible. But all this fat crap.
What
has
is
to get out
this
of the way.
thing right here? This that
Fat?
yeah.
It's
Yep.
just fat.
Oh, okay.
It's just fat. And this you have to be careful because this. Oh wait, there it is. That is your. This is your submandibular gland right there, and that is your submandibular duct coming in underneath. And then your sublingual. See, the sublingual is like way down in here somewhere. Don't worry about that one. But parotid is right under the ear, and then this one right under the jaw, with that lovely little duct right there.
Okay.
It's the submandibular. Okay.